Hello, Watch Chit Chat here with your reminder that life is short. Buy the watch. Today we've got 6 watches in front of us, and the reason why I've picked these 6 in my collection is because these are the watches that I've applied a protective film to. Now there are arguments for and against the use of protective film. The common argument against is that once you start babying your watches, then the watches are now wearing you, not the other way around. You've lost a degree of control. However, the argument for is that these are beautiful things. They're objects and they look amazing. So why wouldn't you want to keep it that way? Regardless, they're your watches, so do what you want with them. I decided to put film on these, and I'll explain a little bit more as to why. It actually had to do with this Daytona being a precious metal piece. Now I know it's a watch, but it is a piece and a hunk of precious metal. So the AD basically said to me, well, look, once you scratch this and you lose that shine, then you're actually losing a lot of the value of not the watch itself, but the metal. And so whilst that didn't bother me a great deal, I sort of got his point. And so I just thought I'd experiment and just play for myself and see if I liked it or didn't. So then why did I select these watches? The Cartier? Well, for no other reason than to experiment with it. The film isn't cheap. It's over 120 US or Australian dollars. So I wanted one watch to at least trial this with first. So we look closer, we can see that I've done the bezel there, and you can see it just around the screws, it's noticeable. This was actually a very difficult task because it was the first one I did. But you can also see that the film is very thin around these edges. So as I pulled it off the template, it stretched, and you can see just at the 7 o'clock there, or sorry, 8 o'clock there, that it's damaged. Now the reason why is because when it stretched, I couldn't get that to stick back on. So I did some running repairs, cut it, and was able to somewhat salvage it. I actually don't think it looks too bad. And to be honest, I only did it on the outside bezel because that's where the Santos is known to scratch the most. I haven't done it on any of the links on the bracelet. Again, that's a brushed finish. It doesn't bother me too much. It's more the high polished ends that I want to keep shining like new. So then after that, I had a crack at the overseas. And again, I only did the bezel. And you can see it there. I think I was lucky. It wasn't my first, it didn't fit on the first go, but on my second attempt, it dropped straight on. And so these are water stickers. They don't actually have adhesive. You just dip them in water, put them there, put them in place, and then it, like a vinyl wrap, the moisture goes and it seals. The Datejust 36 I had a few problems with. Now, I managed to get these edges really well, and I managed to get this clasp on quite well. But one thing that I had an issue was this long edge. The film actually didn't fit. Now, I'm not sure if this film just wasn't sized properly for the 36, but you can see here, there's a cut. Now the reason being, as soon as I placed this film on, it overlapped by quite a bit, and by the time that occurred, I couldn't really do anything about it. And because it's so thin and fiddly, I had to overcut just to correct that. Look, you can see it there if you look at it, but the majority of the edge is protected, so it didn't bother me too much. It actually worked best with the sub. And I think the sub probably is a bit more popular, and so I believe the film's probably refined much better. You can see it on these edges here. I'd already scratched up the sub, so it wasn't my real first need to protect it. I actually just, again, I was just trying it out. But it was really nice to have this high polished edge protected along with these, especially because it's ceramic and sapphire glass. That'll always look new, and it'd just be a bit odd to have new and really rough edge on this polish. So it worked really well for the sub, even though I didn't really need it on the sub. So the GMT was the one that had the biggest problem. Now I'm not sure if it's because it's a 2024 model and maybe the dimensions are slightly different. But you can see on the long edge, it's tucked up right against the edge, but there's still some overhang. And I managed to get these on okay, but there's still a little bit of overhang, even though it's pushed up right on the edge. So I think there's an issue with the film sizing. And you can see here, in particular, this is all placed on quite well. If you look closely, you can see that there's some discoloration on the edges. Just there. So what I'll do is, maybe not today, but in another video, what I'll do is I'll have a crack at pulling that film off and seeing if I can retrofit and get that fixed. And then the Daytona. This one worked really well, and the reality is this is the main watch I wanted to protect for the reasons I indicated, and it worked really well. The only issue I had was, for some reason, this film on this side, you can see there's a film there, just on that edge there. This one wouldn't stick, and I'm not sure if it was defective, but it just would not adhere, even though it was straight off the template. And also, it was a bit tight to get these edges pinned in behind the oyster flex. So they give you these tweezers with the kit, and so what you're meant to do is, I believe, push them in with that. But I found what was handier than that was just using the good old toothpick. Just be able to push those edges in and roll it through. So anyway, as I said, they're your watches. You can do what you want with them. But I had a pretty fun time using the film just to see for myself. Would I do it again? I probably would, but only on some select edges, as I've done here. I left the brush and I just went with the high polished edges that are quite exposed. I'd definitely do it on precious metals. I probably would have done it on the Cartier again, but it's probably up to you. For me, I think watches of a certain value you want to retain, but also really high exposed, high polished ends. If you want to keep your watches in pristine condition, or at least looking really shiny, then that's probably the only reason why you'd do it. You can see here there's some pros and cons. For these two watches, it worked really well with, as well as the Daytona. For the overseas, it really didn't need it. I just had the film. For the Cartier, it does work well. You just got to be careful. It's a bit fiddly. The GMT has had a problem, so I'm going to have another video on that one. And look, arguably the sub didn't need it, but it's nice to have. So anyway, if you like that video, please click like and subscribe, and tune into when I have a crack at fixing the Pepsi. And remember, life's short, buy the watch.